Hello. See, that does work when you actually spend time doing it. Take number 1. Ah, look at that. Not a second take. That makes a change for this channel. Right. I thought I'd put this out there. I did do this on YouTube several years ago, but I thought I'd put it out there in a more succinct form, because I do have a tendency to ramble, as you might have noticed from some of the videos. Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Autism and Me. I got diagnosed a little late in life when I was 44 with autism. It didn't really mean a lot to me until after I got diagnosed. And I bought some books, 3 or 4 books. I've given them away to someone now because, I've read them and I know what they say. So I've given to someone that probably hasn't read them, and she's had them for 4 months. And it was reading the books that really enlightened my opinion. Because the books literally told my life as a child. Peter did this, Susan did that, and it was like someone had been spying on me all my life. Let me sum it up for you, he says, leaning on his elbow in a warm, passive-aggressive, friendly sort of way. Passive-aggressiveness, that's another one that is very difficult for autistic people to understand. Anyway, I'm wandering off the subject again. Friendships. To me, a friendship is someone you can trust in, and that reflects that trust back on you. Someone you can rely on for when you're in times of trouble. And someone that actually asks about you without any prior motive or intent. For example, repairing a phone, borrowing money, etc., etc. That's what I class as a friendship. And when I say someone you can rely on at any time, I mean it's what I call the 2:30 in the morning phone call in desperation. If you can call someone at 2:30 in the morning and not keep your fingers crossed hoping they will pick up, knowing they will pick up, then that is a true friend. And it goes a little bit deeper than that, in as much as they must treat you like they treat any of their friends. Because I've had 57 years of being treated. This is why on here my tag is the dirty little secret. On Meet Me, that is. Because I've been treated like everyone's dirty little secret. Most people's, not everyone's. There were 2 or 3 people that actually treated me with an amount of respect, which I haven't had for a long time. So yeah, they treat you exactly the same way as they treat any other friend. You get a live phone number, because I get given dead phone numbers sometimes, just WhatsApp numbers that don't go to a phone. Doesn't really help if you're in desperate need and you need to call someone. I mean, WhatsApp isn't available all the time. It's server run. Telephones aren't. They're run by, plain old telephone system, basically. And as long as there's power to the exchange at both ends, then you should be able to get through. You don't need data. I try explaining this to people, but most of the people I talk to don't understand English because they're from overseas, and they don't show any intent on really learning how to use the language. And to me, I deem that as racism. If you want to work in the country and live in the country and take money off the country and use our services, and you don't want to use the language, then that is tantamount to racism to people like me. So, friendship, autism, actions. Autistic people, me included, and I know this for a lot of autistic people because I've spoken to a lot of autistic people since 2011. It's like, oh, you're autistic too. And then they, sit down and tell you what they've gone through and things like that. You know how some people can draw a line in the sand and just, forget everything and move forward? No, that's not going to work with autistic people. No, if there's been a mistake or an error or something's happened, and then especially with authoritarian organisations, if something's happened and you feel wronged and the other organisation or party isn't willing to admit they've done something wrong, or at least to meet you halfway to, air the grievance and come to an understanding. Because that's the other thing that autistic people cannot do. We cannot come to an understanding without it making sense. Most people can. They can, the we beg to differ thing. We agree to differ. No, autistic people won't agree if there's a difference. They have to be able to understand, and then you have to show willing to come towards them, and then maybe we can adapt a little. But we can't adapt very much because we see things literally as black and white. It is right, it is wrong. There is no grey area to us. That's why in times of crisis, autistic people were the ones to turn to. I was in IT when things went pear-shaped. Then, I'm just quickly looking just to make sure it's recording. When things went pear-shaped, I was the calmest one in the crowd. It's like, oh yeah, so things are broken, you just do this, this and this. And everyone turned round and thought, how are you so calm? Well, part of it is because I'm autistic. And part of it is, well, it's only IT, it's not going to kill you. We see things that are absolutely logical. It's not like you're holding 100-ton weight above your head and you're keeping it from crushing you. No, it's only IT. Most of the time it's resolvable. Come on, boys and girls, don't get panicky about it. So I think that's why we stay calm in a storm, because, we can see the blatantly obvious and how little danger to life there is. And that's what it comes down to with us. Danger to health, danger to life. Anything else is trivial to someone with autism. It doesn't seem trivial to you guys. What do they call neurotypicals? I think the phrase was. I'm not sure if they've changed that, but it used to be a neurotypical. So that's friendship, that's decisions. The way we see the world is different as well. I don't mean actually, because no one actually sees the world at all. If you consider how we see, we don't actually see at all. Our brain sees. Our eyes capture the light, send the signals back to the brain, and the brain tries to make sense of it. And it does in a most funky way. For example, it makes up colours because purple doesn't exist. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Purple doesn't exist in nature. So your brain makes up purple because it's in between two colours it knows about, and it sort of like guesses. And that's the thing I raised when I was a kid at school, back in the chemistry class, when no one could do the chemistry lessons. We had this little debating thing. And everyone laughed at me when I sort of like threw my hat into the ring. And I said, so how do you know the sky's blue? And most of them just said, well, you look up to the sky and it's blue. And I said, but how do you know it's blue? And remember, I was only 14 at the time. And they couldn't understand me. And I said, right, let me explain it to you, I said. Because I'd been, I'm a people watcher. I've been analysing people around me since I was born. 57 years later, I know a thing or two about people. So I said, you know the sky's blue because one of your parents probably turned to the sky and said, look at that lovely sky blue, or blue sky. And you saw them pointing to the sky, and you saw what you interpreted as what they called blue, and you call it blue. But there's no guarantee, just because we're all built more or less the same, there's no guarantee that your brain is interpreting that frequency of light the same way that your mum or your dad or your friend is. Blue to me could be like pink to you, but you call it blue because that's what everyone's told you. Are you getting me? We have not got the technology to know for sure that we're all wired exactly the same when it comes to interpreting light. But I do believe that my version might be more correct than people give it credit for, because it could explain a lot of differences when it comes to choosing colours for decorating and clothing and things like that, where some people have got bad colour sense and they don't realise that things just clash and it looks fine to them. Maybe their colours are slightly different and in their mind it actually does look fine. We don't know. We assume the speed of light, for instance. We don't know the speed of light because we can't tell the speed of light. We can only measure the reflected speed of light. This is true. I'm not making this up. To date, we haven't measured the speed of light. We've measured the reflected speed of light and then halved it. Because the way we measure speeds of very fast things, especially light, is we have to reflect it off a known target at a distance and then time it and then divide that by 2. Well, the theory is, we're getting totally off subject here, but the theory is, see, this is why it's confusing with some people, that we don't know if the speed of light going out is exactly the same as the speed of light coming back. Even Einstein made the assumption about that because he couldn't tell one way or the other. So we are assuming Einstein's right, and therefore we're assuming Einstein's assumption that the speed of light in both directions is exactly the same. Anyway, autism. Getting back to autism and me. I don't know. You know, we think differently. We act differently. We are odd. We are strange. We aren't usual. We're weird. That's how I've been called, along with various other things in my life. And it is frustrating. Trying to explain, literally most of the time when I talk to someone, I almost every time have to explain intricate details about words and their use. Sorry, I have to keep pushing the cats off, otherwise they come and clamber over the keyboard. And it is frustrating when you know how a word is used or what you mean, and because the other person you're talking to has a lesser command of the English language than you do. And remember, I'm self-taught English. I got the basics at school, yes. I think a lot of my English language was from 1 year with a teacher called, I can't remember his name now. My ex-girlfriend who's gone to Australia, she knew because she kept getting slapped on the floor and all that. Harper, Mr. Harper, or Hooper, that was one. And he took an old school view of, Theseus and Perseus. It was all classical Greek to him. It was fantastic. I enjoyed his lessons, strangely enough. Everyone else hated it, but I liked it. And I think that sunk in more than anything else. I mean, let's put it this way. When I stayed on to the sixth form to do my O-levels, my English was so good, even though I hadn't passed my exam because I'm crap at exams, my English was so good the teacher asked me to help the other people to do the O-levels, even though I hadn't passed. My life is full of weirdness and oddities like that. I'm trying to do this for people that know me or that follow me on various social media devices, because I don't think people really understand what autism is. It's not a disorder. It's not a syndrome. They call it the autistic spectrum. Yes and no. I mean, part of autism is a spectrum, but there is how I see it, there is a box, and in that box there is another box, and the bigger box is autism. And inside that box, but not inside the other box, is general views about the world. It's basic programming structure. And in that other box in autism, this is the spectrum bit, is how you interpret the main rules. When we are on a spectrum, but we all work by more or less the same rules when you're autistic. It's the same as being neurotypical. You more or less use the same rules, you just interpret it differently. And the base rules for autism is you take things literally. So if someone says, I'll see you in a minute, you're walking over to the front door because you expect within 60 seconds they will be there. That's not what people mean, and you have to learn that. And to learn it, you basically have to train your brain not to take things so literally, which is hard when it's wired in like that. You have to basically bypass your programming and add, as they would say in, Star Trek The Next Generation, Data, you have to add a subroutine in to intercept the messages going to your logic center to make it in a neurotypical friendly way. And you have to then send a message over to your command center to say, don't panic, this is normal. This is not what we think, but this is how other people think. And that's why on my assessment in 2011, they said I was higher functioning. Because as I said to my consultant on the last, the fourth session, he gave me a questionnaire to do, and I said, well, how do you want me to do this? It was about social interaction in a public situation. It's on the Autism Research Centre in Cambridge website still to this day. It's the same thing they give you. And the consultant turned around to me and said, what do you mean? It didn't really sound like that, but it sounds more psychiatric. What do you mean? How? And I said, well, there's at least 3 ways I can answer this. I can answer it how you think I should answer it, way number 1, as an autistic person. Or I can answer it how I think other people would interpret it in relation to me, number 2. Or I can answer it as though I was out with these people and put it down on that situation. So from both sides of the situation or from your side of the situation. And that's the reason why autistic people are great debaters. Because we can defend and argue against any situation because we can see both sides automatically. It's not that the smoking gun proved that he had a gun in his hand and killed him. It's like, well, someone might have placed a smoking gun in his hand and he just suddenly died of a heart attack. No one knows. Come on, we can argue the toss. Life is so confusing for me. If it wasn't for alcohol and occasional sex, I'd just be turning into a cat handler. Yeah, and there's one of them there. So I think after 20 minutes of me boring you totally, and most people turned off after about 30 seconds anyway, I shall love you and leave you. If there's any more, if you've got any queries, put them in the comments. I think this thing does comments. Put them in the comments. They're all over the internet. This is going up on Meet Me Live. It's going on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. You name it, it's probably on. Oh, Tumblr, it's going on now. So if you have got any queries about autism and how people with autism see the world or interpret it, just think differently, and you're halfway there. Thank you for your time. Let's see if the ending works.